We're definitely starting to move towards winter here. And so the focus that Sasha and I have been having in the last few days is how do we continue to evolve our system of making it so that our lovely hens can continue to generate compost, have a good life, eat fresh greens, some meat, some active sprouts, and feel safe and healthy as we come deeper into the winter. So in this video, I'm going to share notes on how we're renovating our winter run, organizing and refining our composting pipeline on the entry, thinking through what it looks like to make paths a little bit more comfortable for our hens. We'd like that lady right there not to have 1 foot off the ground. And thinking through the layout of this space so that it's effective, that it has an actual thoughtful flow. Raw food scraps coming in on one side, finished compost or finished enough compost leaving out the other side. So let's talk about all that in this video. I hope that's worth your while and we'll get right into it. I think the first question that would come up would be, why even go through all this fuss? Why build a high tunnel? Why set up all this compost? You know, you could just put out food scraps and let the hens eat it. In our climate, if we just dumped raw food scraps, went to a restaurant, picked up the stuff, or dumped our own things out here on the snow, they would freeze rock solid. No composting, no decomposition would happen. And the more snow and rain we get, the less our hens would work on it. I see no hens out here right now. All of the action is in this space. This super wonky high tunnel, cattle panel high tunnel, which I'll link to here if you're interested in seeing how to build them. And of course you can build them. If I can build it this way, you can build it this way or better, I'm sure. And so Sasha and I went through this yesterday and renovated it. In the summer, it was basically just a storage space for hay bales and resources. And so what we went through and did, Sasha did most of the heavy lifting on this one, got all the compost that was in here organized on either side. So there's a central walkway. From there, once we had the basic layout going on, and we had shaved it down to the bottom on the walkway, I went through and dumped some fresh leaves. And so that creates a carbon pad in the very center of this. And you can see what happens is as the hens work, they basically kick down slope. And so each kick sends a little bit more food scraps down to the middle. When we have dried thick pads of leaves in the middle, excess nutrient and material lands on carbon, and then I can go through with the hay fork and put it back on top and they can kick it down again. That very basic design pattern works out pretty nicely for us. Have like a long windrow of compost on either side that's piled up at an angle where it's easy for the chickens to kick down, and some sort of carbon in the middle. We love working with leaf bags because they're so easy to collect in the fall, but this could certainly be old waste hay or straw or leaves or sawdust or wood chips or. We took one side, this is the far or the northern side of the high tunnel, and buttoned it up a bit so that there's less cross breeze through here. It's going to help warmth accumulate. You can see all I did was take a scrap piece of plastic. I battened it down at the top so it's a flap, and then to keep it from flapping in the breeze, put some milk crates with some weight in the bottom, some leaf bags on the outside, and then took some large binder clips and rolled the plastic over a few times to pinch it. There's still some gaps, so heavy winds can sneak through without adding pressure to the high tunnel, but it'll really help keep the air from whipping through here. I definitely don't think it makes sense to seal this super tight because it's going to get a lot warmer in there, and we don't want them to have an accumulation of excess gases. So one side being open feels reasonable for now. We want the pathways to be comfortable for our chickens, not because we're being precious about them, but it just seems reasonable to encourage them to come out and work and to be comfortable on their way to and from. So Sasha's taking the crusty, icy that builds up. This can get pretty mucky with tons of chicken foot traffic. And so it's a mix of ice and their manure and wet leaves. She'll scrape that up and then we'll put down some dry leaves. Every few days we can do that, and this just becomes part of the composting pipeline too. On an ice cold day with bare feet, I would much rather walk on this than on this. This seems worth doing every few days. Once we get deep enough into winter, it can freeze so tight that we can't really scrape it anymore, but we can just keep adding leaves for a little while on top until things thaw in the spring. They're a lot happier. Part of the work we need to do as well, this is our outdoor compost pipeline. Spring, summer, fall, this works beautifully. It's a little bit more space. It's functional. It's got a nice flow of raw food scraps coming in, and then turn. If we left this out here all winter, it would freeze solid. So we need to start chipping away at moving this closer to the high tunnel. The value in doing that is has a bunch of layers. Number one, it's going to help bulk up the whole compost picture. The more material there is, the more warmth and the more resilience and inertia it seems to have to keep working. The other thing is that this compost received a whole lot of rain and snow in the last little bit and did not get enough carbon to match. And so it's a little bit mucky and sticky. It's not composting as well as it should. So we're going to load it into a wheelbarrow, dump it near the high tunnel, but fold in some leaves as we go. Part of the value of harvesting all this is there's so many seeds that have been added to this over the last few weeks and months that haven't sprouted yet. If they just sat here, they would freeze solid and have to wait till spring, or worse, they might rot. And just like with all of this, anytime we come in to move compost at all, it's an opportunity for the hens to get psyched. Even on the coldest days, they hear the hay fork moving and they'll come out, walk through the snow and come see what's happening. We added a little bit of grit and oyster shell on the ground and on top of the compost as free choice for them. And this is it for now. We can let them work on this. Again, we don't have to get everything absolutely perfect for the whole winter in the first day. But each day, if we can chip away at this 10, 15 minutes or so, we're gonna get a huge amount of compost queued up with the ratios right, lots of air, ready to enter this pipeline mixed with food scraps so that the hens can work on it down the line. We'll make an update in about a week and bring a temperature probe out. My goal is to have this space reliably at chicken height hold well above freezing, maybe closer to 50 or 60 degrees. So they're super comfortable and active. And maybe I'm going to clear out this far end and mix it with some sand and diatomaceous earth so there's a nice dusting bath for them in here too. One thing that we've definitely learned with this system over the years is you'd be hard pressed to find an upper limit of how much carbon you'd want to have on hand. It's so nice to be able to, when in doubt, add more bulk carbon material to this sort of system. And in years past, we would get 37 cubic yard loads of sawdust or mountains of wood chips. That's awesome if that's what you can get, round bales of hay. This year, we're just really big on leaf bags. And I'm psyched we've got this really simple cache all queued up before it got this cold. I would not want to be going out with icy roads and frozen bags trying to set this up now. And so this is just basically a winter's worth of carbon, mineral, and actual warmth in here too. It's a good reminder that in order to make compost, you don't have to get crazy with perfect ratios and the exact right texture. So in other words, all of this material, this just random leaf bags from around town, some dry, some wet, some just leaves, some with plants, no shredding whatsoever, no urine added, no water added, just dumped in here. Let me open it up and see how warm it is. Probably doesn't show up on camera, but the steam coming out is nice. It's also a lovely smell. It smells so rich. So again, no modification on these leaves in this case, no shredding, no added nutrient, just dumped in a big pile. And there you go. It's actually, to my mind, the most ideal temperature. 100 degrees, it's not gonna freeze for a very long time. It keeps creeping up gently. I'm not trying to have this pile be extremely hot, but to have this amount of material queued up where when we get into a real cold snap, we can dip in and get a few wheelbarrow loads to put in the coop so the chickens have really toasty, comfortable feet, and it can also absorb their waste material. Just a lot of value. Anytime you can cache piles of carbon or bulk organic matter, to me that's beautiful. It's just a really exciting backup and a wonderful resource. 3 feet high, maybe 8 feet wide, about 20 feet long, averaging 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I wonder what sort of energy that actually is. We're gonna go have breakfast now. Let the chickens have their breakfast for a little while. We'll continue to poke at this later. Let's get some chicken TV.